Elena Mikhailova was used to odd invitations. At 14, she had flown to Reykjavik for a midnight rapid match inside a planetarium. At 16, she had played on the deck of a drifting icebreaker for a billionaire who wanted aurora-lit chess. But the envelope that arrived on a chill October morning carried no sponsor's logo, no association seal, only a black rook stamped in wax and the single line, "Your next real opponent awaits beneath Grand Central Terminal, Track 61, October 11, 11:00 p.m. One game, accept and arrive alone." Most prodigies learn to ignore theatrics. Yet the envelope smelled faintly of cedar and sea salt, the scent of the old wooden board her late father had taught her on. That scent felt like a magnetic tug on her skull. Against her better judgment, she descended the hidden staircase behind Track 61 at 10:55 that night, sneakers scuffing pea gravel that should not have existed in Manhattan bedrock. A single vault, lit by caged bulbs, revealed a raised platform, 2 velvet-lined armchairs, and, atop a marble pedestal, a board of ebony and ivory squares that seemed somehow older than geometry itself. Around the edges stood 6 other people in tailored suits, their faces shadowed beneath the bulbs. Elena recognized 2, Beatriz Santos, the Portuguese blitz queen, and Yao Jun, the enigmatic Chinese endgame theoretician rumored to calculate 50 move lines by eidetic trance. Their eyes flicked across her with a mixture of pity and admiration, as if she had joined them in a secret too heavy to share. At the far end, a bearded man in his 70s tapped a silver pocket watch. Viktor Kovacs, Hungarian legend, twice world champion before vanishing from public tournaments a decade ago. Elena's pulse jumped. Kovacs had been her father's idol. He had annotated the man's games for her bedtime stories. "Miss Mikhailova," Kovacs said, voice sandpaper on oak. "Welcome to the deep board." One of the suited attendants pulled a leather strap tight around Elena's wrist, buckling a brass disc that resembled both a chronometer and a manacle. She recoiled. "What is this?" "Telemetry," said Kovacs. "The board tracks us. Without the disc, the moves have no anchor." Elena opened her mouth to protest, but Beatriz mouthed a silent warning. "Don't." Elena allowed the buckle to click shut. "Color?" Kovacs asked. She almost chose white. Initiative was life, but her instinct screamed to see first. "Black," she said. A faint shimmer rippled over the 64 squares, like heat above desert sand. Kovacs sat, adjusted his chair with ritual care, then reached to advance his king's pawn 2 squares. The instant his fingers left E4, Elena's wrist disc vibrated, and a cascade of memories she never possessed splintered through her mind. She was suddenly allergic to strawberries. Her childhood dog had carried rabies. Her mother now spoke with a slight Romanian accent. The memories felt real, embedded, as if they had always been. She lurched back, chair legs screeching. Kovacs watched her calmly. "Your move." She stared at him, then at the other players along the wall. They looked paler, as though something essential had leached from them. Yao Jun subtly flexed his wrist disc, knuckles white. Elena pushed her pawn to E5, half expecting smoke to billow. A stillness hummed, then the disc warmed. She noticed the weight of her hair, dyed black streaks she had never applied. Her phone, tucked in her hoodie, buzzed with a new notification feed, tournaments she had placed in differently, interviews she had never given. Whatever this game was, each move revised the lattice of their histories. "Parlor trick," she whispered, but fear curdled in her throat. Kovacs smiled sadly. "Not a trick. An agreement, the opening transposed toward a Vienna Gambit." Kovacs's bishop sliced to C4. A child's cough echoed in Elena's ears. She saw a boy, maybe 6, with her own green eyes clutching a toy rook. She didn't have a child, but now part of her did? If she resigned, which life would remain? She steeled herself and developed her knight to F6. Another tremor. Her father, long dead of lung cancer, had instead drowned off Kaliningrad, a fishing accident. The grief rewrote itself inside her like a virus editing DNA. Across 20 minutes, the game spiraled into tactical chaos. Queens darted, pawns raced. Each piece that shifted seemed to nudge reality. Subway schedules inverted, constellations redrew, languages swapped idioms. Elena glimpsed permutations. She and Beetridge, roommates at MIT. Yao Shun, an ex-monk. Kovacs in some branches a murderer, in others a savior. Between moves, Kovacs murmured, "The board is older than empire. It satisfies itself on contingency. We sit, it consumes." What happens when the game ends? For one player, a single line of reality hardens Victor's privilege. The other? He rubbed his thumb across a knight's mane. Erasure, unless mate arrives by mutual stalemate, so-called balance. Balance has occurred thrice in 600 years. Elena's gut nodded. If I resign? You dissolve now. No memory, no fossil trace, not even grief for those who loved you, because they will not have. She saw why the observers looked haunted. They were past losers who had clung by officiant's mercy. No, they wore discs too. Survivors, perhaps. The losers were simply absent. She inhaled through her nose, tasting iron. Then I play. Move 32. The position balanced. Both had a queen, rook, bishop, 5 scattered pawns. Elena's clock and analog brass twin beside the board showed only 19 minutes to Kovacs's 25. The disc on her wrist pulsed with each heartbeat. Or maybe it set the rhythm. She needed not only to win, but to shape an outcome where victory didn't cost her soul. Could she force balance? She recalled arcane stalemate studies, endgames where each side must simultaneously strangle and safeguard the other. If she could orchestrate mutual zugzwang-ik move, worsening both players until the board yielded no legal move, balance might arise. But Kovacs had decades more endgame lore. She shifted plan, attacked the anchor of the magic itself. If the board required an agreed contest, what if she played an illegitimate move? Touch move was sacred, but perhaps illegality would unwind the covenant. She reached for her F-pawn, intending to hop it like a checkers piece. A blatant foul. Her fingertips entered the square, and an invisible field stung like hot quartz. She jerked back. The board hissed, ebony squares glowing faintly. Kovacs shook his head. It punishes cheats. Last month, a Sicilian tryout disappeared mid-match for attempting en passant from rank 5. We heard his scream end halfway. Elena wiped sweat from her palms. Fine. They played on. Knights traded, bishops hemmed. With each capture, Elena felt a subtraction. The boy with green eyes blurred, replaced by a girl who called her auntie instead. Kovacs' shoulders slumped, as if the revisions weighed double upon the older. During a time scramble, their queens forked each other's rooks. Kovacs blinked twice and murmured, "No wife." A tear slid unnoticed down his cheek. She seized a moment of empathy. "You hate this as much as I." "I founded it," he admitted, voice crumbling. "In 9 I sought destiny. Now destiny consumes me." "Help me reach balance," she pleaded. He considered, then slowly shook his head. "No balance without risk, but I can teach the pattern." His next move was not optimal. It was instructive, steering toward a mirrored fortress. They chased pawns, avoiding lethal exchanges, funneling material until only opposite-colored bishops remained, each side's minor piece trapped behind pawns. The position smacked of theoretical draw, but the board thrummed, sensing a closing loop. Kovacs whispered variations under breath, guiding like a ghostly mentor. Elena followed, heart pounding. Move 73, Elena to move. She realized the path to balance required one intentional blunder, self-pinning her bishop so both players had no legal progression. The blunder, however, offered Kovacs the option of a miraculous king walk into her camp, forcing checkmate in 6, a prisoner's dilemma. She met his gaze. "Will you choose me or oblivion?" He half smiled. "Same question returns." Elena thought of her father's cedar-scented lessons. In true chess, the opponent is mirror and window. Sacrifice shows who you are. She slid her bishop along the diagonal, pinning it immovably against her own pawn. Her king had no flight squares. Kovas's mirrored. After her finger left the piece, she felt no tremor. Reality held its breath. Kovas stood, hands clasped behind his back, circling the board. The onlookers watched as if at an altar. He could mate her, seize the grand line, match the pin, and accept balance. He lifted his bishop. Time dilated. Elena's every neuron screamed, ready to vanish. Kovacs set the bishop down parallel to hers, a carbon copy pin. Silence, like birth's first second, enveloped the vault. The board's squares flared white, then darkened to ordinary wood. The discs unlocked, falling to the floor with metallic clinks. A breeze swept through tunnels that should have been airtight, scattering dust so thick it coated tongues. Light bulbs popped, plunging the cavern into gloom. Elena's phone chimed. An ordinary message from her coach about Sunday's Swiss qualifier. She remembered strawberries again. She remembered not drowning. Yet she also remembered the boy and the girl. Phantoms nested like Russian dolls in her brain. Kovacs steadied her elbow. "Is it over?" she asked. He nodded. "Balance declared." Beatrice exhaled a sob of relief. Yao crossed himself with shaking fingers. An attendant wheeled the board back into a foam-lined crate, padlocked it, and stamped red wax on the seam. Elena turned to Kovas. "We could just destroy it. Others would build another. The hunger exists in us before it lives in wood." He paused. "Consider yourself caretaker now." She balked, but the crate's courier had already pressed a claim ticket into her palm, the board. "In perpetuity to Elena Mikhailo, or her chosen heir." "Why me?" "Because you chose balance," he said. "The board adapts. It will call again when history frays." "And if I refuse?" He brushed cedar dust from her shoulder. "Refusal is merely another move." They emerged onto the quiet platform of track 61. Midnight's last train thundered above like an indifferent god. The others slipped into night, each alone. Elena remained, ticket crumpled in fist, feeling the tectonic weight of all the lives she had almost lived. She inhaled, and the air tasted of cedar and sea salt, both origin and warning. Far away, somewhere in the city's braid of dreams, 64 invisible squares recalibrated, waiting for her or someone she loved to sit again.